What's up, everybody? It's Sunday, which means it's time for Sunday Scaries with Natalie. How are y'all doing tonight? Thanks for hopping in the chat already. What's up, Mike, the vegan corn king? I also love corn, it's really good. I've been listening to a lot of climate stuff lately, so I've learned that corn is one of the top four crops in the world. It's corn, soy, wheat, and shit, what was the other one? I forgot. What's up, a friendo? How you doing today? How you doing? What's everyone been up to this weekend? I had a bonfire last night. It was awesome. Had some friends over. The problem was they stayed a little bit late till about 1:30 or 2, so I didn't get quite as much sleep as I wanted. Lately, I've just been waking up at 8:45 every single day, and I try to sleep in on the weekends, but it doesn't usually work. So I need to learn the lesson to just go to bed earlier, but that's hard when you have people over and you're all having a good time. But I hope that everyone else had a great weekend too. Happy St. Patty's Day. Are you wearing green? I'm not, because no one can pinch me here. There's a party that I was thinking about going to, but it's like, I don't know, it's like a 15-minute drive. And if you live in New Orleans, then that's a long drive. We don't drive much here. I know in another city, 15 minutes would be nothing. But I don't know if I'm going to make it. It's kind of rainy, so it's just nice to hang out on the couch and relax. All right, so I don't know if I want to get into the main topic yet. Maybe we should let some more people join. But I don't have much else to talk about it, so let's do it. So you may be aware that there was a stream on Vegan, of course, on Thursday night. James Aspey was on there with Sky, and they were talking about money and animal activism. And I found that they said a few things that I didn't really agree with. And I'm not going to just come on here and talk a bunch of shit about people who I consider my friends. Abba Laciel got involved. He started talking a lot of shit. I consider myself kind of friends with him as well. So all these people in this situation, I know, and it feels weird to kind of talk publicly about people like this, but it's something that I want to touch on because I think it is important to talk about financial transparency in animal rights. So, when I was watching the stream with James, I had a bit of a negative emotional reaction to some of the things that he was saying. So, why don't we just start with talking about that? So, kind of the first thing that was said that I thought was really ridiculous was the idea that we should be trying to get rich and famous off of activism, and that somehow from that money and fame, we can enact social change. I just think that's an insane idea. Am I wrong? Do you guys think that's a good idea that we should be trying to get rich and famous? Why would that work? We already have plenty of rich and famous vegans. We've had rich, famous vegans for decades. The problem with that is, like, if people look at someone who's really rich and really famous and they find out they're vegan, then it's like, oh, well, they can be vegan because they're rich and famous. I can't go vegan because I'm not rich and famous. And it reinforces the idea that veganism is for the privileged and the elite. And we all know that's not true. Vegan diets are 30% cheaper. That's an insane amount cheaper in Western countries. That's not true everywhere in the world, but probably a lot of people are watching from Western countries. So, yeah, just this idea that getting rich is going to help animal rights, I think, is very flawed. I do understand. They were talking about rich in terms of money. Um, you still know some people who play soccer for a lot of money. I'm not sure what that means, but yeah. So I just think it's such a ridiculous idea. And then Sky said something when he was reacting to Abba Lesiel about if he were rich and famous, then he would kind of do like an Anthony Bourdain show where he would travel around the world and showcase vegan food. I also don't think that that's a good idea in terms of animal liberation. I think we should be putting our money toward activism, like strategic campaigns that have power to change the world, not just kind of painting this idea of like veganism is fun and great. Like, maybe we need some of that, but that shouldn't be our activism strategy. The other issue I have with this is that James said something about how we should all want vegans to be the richest people on earth, because if all the rich people were vegan, then we would have so much power to change. And the point that I want to make is even if like there were so many rich people that were vegan, we're still never going to have as much money as animal agriculture. Just in the United States, animal agriculture gets $1.5 trillion every year, just in the US. I don't even know what it is globally. It's more than that. That's an insane amount of money. We're never going to get that rich. We're never going to be able to compete with animal agriculture at a financial level. I don't think. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't see it happening. So I don't think that we should try to compete at a financial level. I think we should be focusing on changing culture and passing legislation and things like that. Omar Vegan Run. I meant that society must support vegans much more. It would be nice if society supported vegans, but I also don't see that happening. Having 2 million to drop on vegan advertising would be nice. Maybe it would, but once again, is advertising the best thing we can do in terms of activism? I also don't think so. But yeah, we're just never going to be able to compete financially. I think acknowledging that is just being realistic and that we should try different routes. So the other thing is that I don't necessarily have a problem with people wanting to be rich. I understand a lot of people want to be rich and that you can do a lot with money, but I don't think that money should come from the vegan movement. It shouldn't come from animal rights. There are many ways to get rich in the world. James said he used to do sales on a cruise ship. Great. If you were crushing it with sales on a cruise ship, keep doing sales on a cruise ship, make money there. Don't ask vegans who don't have that much money for money when you could be making it somewhere else, right? And Sky was saying that, he left a lucrative career, but he wanted to work full time as an animal rights advocate. That's fair too. I think that we all have to make trade offs in life. But if you are pursuing the life as a full time animal rights advocate, you should not expect to be rich and you should not expect to have an extravagant lifestyle. If you want an extravagant lifestyle, I would recommend getting that money from somewhere else and then donating it to animal rights, maybe using your free time for animal rights. I mean, we all have, a lot of time in the day, right? If you're at work for 8 hours a day, then you would still have plenty of time after work to do activism, high level activism. Even if you only did activism for an hour a day, that would still have a huge impact. So you could be spending a lot of your time making money and still do activism. So yeah, just the whole I just got a sense of entitlement from them that I haven't really sensed before from them. And I just don't think anyone should feel entitled to make money from animal rights. I think if you do, that's great. But you shouldn't be making more than I don't know, a living wage, right? Which we're going to kind of talk more about how much I think activists should be making in a little bit. The other thing they said that I didn't like was they kind of looked down on the idea of an oath of poverty. And yeah, I mean, I'm not saying people should have an oath of poverty to do activism, but I do think that we should be willing to live on less than people in other industries because there just is less money to go around in animal rights activism. And we should be aware of that. And personally, I would be doing animal rights even if I wasn't getting paid. And I think that Sky and James probably feel the same way. So I just didn't like the sense of entitlement that I felt. So, because of that, I want to talk more about my financial situation because it has recently changed. And I want activists to be more transparent about where their money goes. I've talked to James and Sky about this. I think Sky has been pretty transparent about where his money goes. I can't say the same for James. He was also saying that no one really has the right to know what he uses his money for. I disagree. I think that if someone is donating money to you, then they have every right to know what that money is being used for. If I were giving money to a charity and they said they were, providing water to people, and then I found out that they were paying their staff members like $150,000 a year, I'd be pretty pissed, right? or just if they were using their money not for water for people, I would be upset. And I think if someone says they're using their money for activism, they should be using that money for activism. They shouldn't be spending it on weed or raves. You can smoke weed sometimes, you can go to raves sometimes, but that shouldn't come from activism money. I'm not saying James is spending all his money from activism on weed and raves, but I don't know. It's possible, right? So, in the interest of remaining transparent about my finances, I will say that for the last basically 2.5, 3 years since I started my YouTube channel, the goal of my YouTube channel was to become a full-time animal rights advocate, and that's been the dream. And I'm still getting around $500 a month on Patreon, a little less than that, and I was using that for living expenses to try to live and have a part-time job and then do YouTube part-time as well. And that was working for me for a while. But recently I got a full-time job, as some of you are aware, with Pro Animal Future. And I achieved my dream of having a full-time activist job. And I still get to do my YouTube stuff, which is amazing. So because of that, I am unsure of what to do with my Patreon money. So, okay, there's a question from the chat. So to be an activist, you have to be either all or nothing. No, absolutely not. No, I'm not saying you have to be either all in or nothing. I think there's a huge area of in between, and I think that that's realistically what most people should strive for. So, yeah, thank you for the congratulations. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I got this full time job. But as far as what to do with my Patreon, I'm not sure. I floated the idea because my patron donates 20% every month to animal sanctuaries that we vote on. And I floated the idea like, what if we increase the amount? What if we donate 50% or even 100%? No one wanted to do that. They actually said they'd prefer if we didn't do the donations at all. So I didn't know they felt that way. But I guess a lot of them already donate to like Jake Conroy or other sanctuaries. The reason they donate to me is because they want to support my activism so that I can continue to make videos. In terms of making videos, it is pretty expensive. Last year, I bought a camera that was $1,500. I bought a mic that was $800. And then recently, since I've decided I want to start streaming, I had to buy this mic. I was actually this was a present from my husband. And then the webcam. So this equipment is expensive and it breaks and you have to replace it. So basically, the Patreon money goes toward maintaining my channel. And I think that's what I'm going to keep doing with it. I've had some bigger ideas for videos I want to do that I don't necessarily have the resources for right now. So I'm going to set up a separate bank account and my Patreon money can just go right into that. And when I buy stuff, I can post receipts. And I just want to be fully transparent with everyone about what my money is going toward because I don't want to become one of those people who just, spends money on stupid shit or like just isn't honest with people about what their money's going to or acts entitled about the money. Like once you donate money to me, it's mine and you don't get to know what I do with it. I don't like that attitude. I think that that is bad. Why not make big bucks and put it right back into activism projects and make an even bigger impact? I don't know how to make big bucks. I'm not sure how to do that. But if someone knows how to do that, that's a great idea. It's easy to say not to be wealthy when you have enough to live on to begin with. Perspectives change drastically with circumstances. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying anyone should necessarily be wealthy. I'm saying that we should have enough to live and then use our time wisely and run smart campaigns and whatnot. Conduct academic research relevant to animal product alternatives. Yeah, I mean, that stuff is all good, right? So if someone can pursue a career like that, I think that's great. I've never been great at like making that much money. Like honestly, the highest paying job I've ever had before my current one was $38,000 a year. I felt really rich. Like I've always felt like I've had enough. And yeah, I guess I kind of want to talk about my background when it comes to my values around money and earning money. I think that ever since I was a kid, I felt like people spent money on stupid stuff, like I never wanted nice clothes or like a nice car, and I was kind of confused as to like why people wanted that. It just seemed really clear to me that that wasn't like the way to be happy or just a useful way to spend your resources. So I've always had a bit of disdain for consumerist culture. And when I was pretty fresh out of college, I just came across it was this blog about how to lower your living expenses really far so that you can save up more to retire earlier. And at the time, that's what I wanted. I wanted to retire early because I'd had a shitty job and I didn't want to do a shitty job till I was 60. So the goal was to just lower my expenses, live on barely anything, and then retire early. Since I found animal rights, obviously that's shifted. Now I don't care about retiring. I just want to be able to do animal rights stuff for as long as I can, as long as it takes. And I'll probably die, and the world will still be abusing animals, unfortunately. But I think in my lifetime, we could realistically end factory farming in the U.S. So that's kind of like what I aim toward in the short term. But yeah, so I don't want to retire early anymore. But because I wanted that when I was younger, I very much did not spend money on things like at all. I hate buying clothes. Like this, for example, my friends have a clothes swap every 3 months where we trade clothes with each other. And it's great because you don't have to buy clothes and just buying nice things. I think people just shouldn't do that as much. So it kind of boils down to the philosophy of voluntary simplicity. And this is what my job has. And they put it into better words than I can. But I want to make the point that this is how I felt about money like before I started working there. So it was cool that they share this. So yeah, we have a stipend essentially, and it's $42,000, 42,850 or something like that. And the goal is that you don't have to worry about money. You have enough to eat and pay rent and have good health insurance and save up a little. For larger expenses, you have to plan ahead and save. You usually eat at home, can afford an occasional meal out if you choose. Yeah, I basically eat out maybe once or twice a week, but mostly cook at home. I'm a penny pincher when it comes to superfluous expenses, but I confidently invest in myself through things like books, courses, and enriching experiences. I totally agree with that. I think that's great. When I was, yeah, also like fresh out of college, I came across this idea that was like, if there's a book that you want, buy it. Like, just don't worry about the cost because books are going to pay back in terms of knowledge, and skills and knowledge are, essentially the most important things that we can build. So when it comes to education, I will spend the money, but not on like, things that you don't need. I would consider myself frugal and thrifty, but not extremely so. I'm pretty extremely so. My quality of life is high, and I don't view a lack of money as holding me back in any significant way. I see voluntary simplicity as a choice, not a burden. So that is the attitude that I wish that more vegan activists had. Not even just more vegan activists, but more people in general, because the less we can live on, the more we can give away to the animals or do whatever else you want with it. There's a lot of stuff in the EA that I feel like has kind of corrupted this idea of like giving away a bunch of your money. I think it is fundamentally a nice idea. And I understand that not everyone is in the financial position to do so. And I'm not saying anyone watching this that you're like an idiot for not saving up enough to give money away. But if you are buying luxury goods, maybe consider not doing that so much, or learning how to spend less money. I think is a valuable, underrated skill in our society. Because I was able to save up so much while I had an office job, that allowed me to quit my job when I wanted to and start my YouTube channel and really put all my focus on it for a few months while I was learning to edit. And I'm so grateful that I was able to save up that much money because I had this value of living well below my means. So I'm saying this stuff will help you out in the long term. All right. If there isn't much money in animal rights, bringing money into it could be a good idea, right? And that way, wealthy activists could be what we need. Yeah, I mean, if we had wealthy activists, that'd be great, but I would rather have wealthy people who are not activists so that they can donate to activists and activists use those for campaigns and for organizations, not for activists to have a rich lifestyle. Some guy, I'm retired and spend much of my free time on social media advocating for veganism. Yes, and you do a great job always hopping in the comments, which is amazing. That's great. So it's essentially become your job, right? Like if you're retired and you spend most of your time doing activism, then that's great. Maybe we should focus more on taking money out of ag instead of making money for ourselves. Look, I think we do focus on that a lot, right? Like we focus on trying to get other people to go vegan, to lower the demand so that animal ag won't have as much money. It hasn't really been working that much. I mean, it works a little bit, right? I don't know the numbers. No one knows the numbers really. They say there's like the number of vegans in the UK doubled. Is that true? I personally went vegan mostly because of Earthling Ed. So yes, there is some value to turning people vegan, but I don't think it's enough. We can't do it fast enough. Just the size of this problem is too large to just focus only on demand. I don't know if that's necessarily what you're suggesting either. There's also the subsidies thing, right? Like animal agriculture not only makes a ton of money, but the government gives them like $40 billion in subsidies every year. So if we can shift some of those subsidies toward plant-based farming, like Agricultural Fairness Alliance is trying to do, that stuff is great. So we are trying some ways to lower the money in animal ag. I guess another thing that vegans do for that is like the Humane League and Mercy for Animals. They're trying to drive up the costs that it takes to abuse animals. Like if they have to have a cage-free egg facility, then they have to spend money on building that, and then that cuts into their profit as well. So yeah, some of those are decent strategies. How do you feel about the government subsidies for animal agriculture? I feel bad about it. I wish that those were not happening. Yeah, one day we'll change those, but I think they're here to stay for quite a little bit. Omar, I have only 1,300 savings. Is that good? That's that's not great. I would try to have more. I don't know your individual financial situation, but generally when I think about savings, like ideally you want enough in savings to be able to live for 6 months if you get fired or something like that. I know most people don't have that. It's unrealistic, but I think it's a good thing to aim for. So you're not selling NFTs? No. And I also just I don't like NFTs. I don't like crypto. I think all of it seems skeezy. I understand that some people are into it. And Sky was kind of making the comparison that, don't get onto people for being into NFTs. Like, what about the people who are into gambling? I also think gambling is bad. And, I'm not going to look down on everyone who gambles, but as a society, I think we should try to move away from gambling that includes NFTs. Nearly half of Americans have 500 or less in their savings account. Yeah, I've heard that before. That's pretty bad, It would be nice if we had more financial literacy. And yeah, I don't know what it is. Sometimes I think some people are just good with money and some people are just bad with money. Like I saw this YouTube short. It was a YouTube short, right? So it's probably not true, but it was essentially making the case that the poor mindset is to think that money is something to be spent, and the rich mindset is to think that money is something to be saved. And I was talking to my sister about that. My sister's terrible with money. And I was like, oh, I think that's actually kind of a good idea because I'm always trying to save my money. And she's like, oh, well, I don't make enough to save. She makes more than I do. So I think she could make enough to save. But she just has that mindset that maybe she doesn't. Maybe that'll change. People can change. But in general, the more you can save, the better for sure. Look up Robin Greenfield, American activist. All right. I prefer to just live my life. If you're saying you prefer to just live your life instead of saving, I think that when you save, you actually are buying freedom for yourself in the future. So, if you want to live your life, that's great. That to me seems like a value of freedom, but you're actually restricting yourself. You're restricting your freedom because if you have more money saved, then you have the options of quitting your job if you hate it or going on a trip if you want to. So, yeah, don't not save just because you want to live your life. I would put a bit more thought into it. I'm not sure if that's what you were trying to say though. Um all right. So, I don't have much more to say on the activism thing. Oh, I did want to say, so I've been supporting Earthling Ed on Patreon pretty much since I went vegan. I give him $5 a month. And I think he probably uses his money wisely. I mean, he's got the sanctuary, he's opening restaurants, he has an organization, he has to pay staff. But I don't know what he's spending his money on, right? Like he doesn't post receipts, he's not super transparent about it. So I'm thinking about canceling my Patreon for him just because if I want people to be transparent, then I should try to support people who are transparent. So I'm also trying to decide, I'm looking for ideas in the chat like how I should change my donation strategy. Right now I give $5 a month to the Cranky Vegan. And then he donates thousands of dollars every month to different sanctuaries that people vote on, which I think is great. So I'm thinking about increasing that amount. But would it be better to increase the amount I donate to him or to start finding other sanctuaries on my own? I just don't know. Because Patreon also takes a cut. So some of that money is going to be wasted through Patreon. So if you guys have suggestions for how I can effectively donate money, then please let me know. If we could end financial support from the government, it would significantly weaken the animal ag companies. Yeah, it for sure would. Yeah, I would love that. I've heard that they're like not even profitable without the subsidies. I don't know if that's true, but it would definitely cut into it. And I think that would be great. Yeah, there's some research connecting financial behavior to personality psychology with respect to fear of the future. Why save if it'll just end up taken somehow? Yeah, I mean, if you live in maybe like an unstable environment or like your government, if you don't have banks and that like your money could be taken away, then I can see why you probably wouldn't want to save. But probably most people watching this are living in countries where banks are legitimate. So hopefully you don't have to worry about people just taking your money. I think Ed needs all the support he can get as the forefront of vegan activism. Maybe that's true, but he also gets a lot of support. Like I think he makes I could be wrong, but I think he makes at least like $8,000 a month on Patreon. He's probably got private donors too. Like I know Joey Carbstrong has big private donors. So I definitely don't think he's hurting for money in any way. Money is a social unicorn struct. Yes. I think we should pool our support behind high profile activists like Joey Carbstrong and Earthling Ed. Why though? Why should we pool our support behind one or two people instead of spreading it around more? Because, they have their strategy, right? And I think Joey has done really good like pressure campaigns and stuff like that. But I don't know if their strategies are the most effective in terms of animal rights activism. So I think it would probably be better to figure out what the most effective strategy is and then try to give more money to that rather than like individual people. But who knows? Ed gets the most support out of any vegan. That's probably true. There may be a vegan that gets more. I do not know. Okay, does anyone have questions about the financial stuff? I know that I probably seem like I don't know. I don't want to seem too extreme with my views about money, but it really did just bother me. Just this idea that activists should be trying to get rich and famous off of money that I think should be going to animals. I thought was not good. But if anyone does want to donate money effectively, I recommend donating to Pro Animal Future because part of the reason I took this job was because they don't pay as much as other animal rights organizations, which I think probably sounds weird to people. So I'll explain it. But there's some animal rights groups, and I have some friends who work there, and they're making like $80,000 a year. Like that's so much money. That shows me that that organization is not spending their money wisely. Whereas Pro Animal Future pays us all the same amount. It's based on a living wage calculator. And they do that so that we have more money for our campaign for closing the slaughterhouse and for banning the sale of fur and for developing campaigns that people can copy and emulate in other cities. So I think that that's really good and really smart. I'm in favor of strengthening our community at large instead of just constantly building up larger vegan activists. The little guys and gals matter too. That's a good point. Yeah, like really, animal liberation isn't going to be won by one or two people. It's going to be won by communities coming together and fighting. So investing in those communities makes a lot of sense. And that's another thing Pro Animal Future does is they're building this amazing community in Denver. It's going to be in other cities, and really just getting those local connections, I think, is key to large scale social change. Spreading money out across different activists is good too, but I think maybe we should prioritize supporting the most successful ones. Maybe, but like some of the reasons, like some of those successful ones are partially successful because of how much money they've been given, right? So there could be someone who would be like really good and do really smart things with the money who's not making as much. If we give money to them, maybe they would have more power to create social change. Do you think working things like carbon intensive, maybe like pilot or trucker, and then donating money is a good idea? Yeah, I think working uh, probably higher paying jobs than like trucker, but and pilot, I don't think they get paid very much, but yeah, just whatever you can do and then donating, I think that's a great idea. That's a great form of activism because not everyone can be an activist, right? Not everyone has the skills to do that, but anyone in theory can make money and then donate that. Opinion on anonymous for the voiceless. So I know there was a lot of stuff with them not being fully transparent about the money they were earning. I'm not super well versed in all of that drama, so I don't wanna say something one way or the other. In terms of cubes, I actually don't really like the conversational strategy that they employ. I think it makes people really defensive. Not everyone, but like a lot of the cube conversations that I overhear when I'm in the cube are some of the worst conversations I hear about animal rights. So I'm not totally sold. I think showing footage to people is great, but the questions they tell people to ask, I don't really love. I think they can be asked in a great way. Like Faraz Harsini is amazing at doing cubes. He's really good at it. He doesn't make people defensive. He asks these questions in a non-judgmental way. But other people I've heard who are just kind of reciting the questions, um, I just don't think it works as well as maybe some other forms of activism. But if you're asking about the money thing, I don't really want to comment on that because I don't totally understand the situation. Robin Hoodsta, I'm losing money doing activism, not making it. Yeah, I mean, that's probably true for most people, right? Like the amount of money I've lost from like printing stickers or posters or buying cameras. Like yeah, it definitely it can definitely add up. But there are some free resources that you can get, free flyers and whatnot. So if you need stuff like that, veganoutreach.org is great. PETA sends out free stuff too. But yeah, unfortunately, we are going to have to spend our own money on activism a lot. That's another thing about AV is I think they make the organizers buy the TVs. I think it would be nice if they provided the TVs because those are really expensive. With your insured transparency and separate account, you could use a personal donation option like Venmo to ensure the least amount is taken by the third party. That's true. Maybe I should do that. The problem is like I don't want to like since I already have people on Patreon, I don't want to move them somewhere else. You know, I feel like I'd lose a lot of people. Um Gee, I wonder if there's a philosopher who wrote multiple books on our moral responsibility for the money we do or don't give effectively. Are you talking about Peter Singer? Because I will admit I've not read Peter Singer. But yeah, maybe I should. Maybe I should do that one day since he's so important to animal rights. Okay, well, I think that we're done with all of the money talk. So yeah, in terms of people watching this, like, yeah, just try to support transparent people, you know, but a lot of it is kind of personal values. Like if you don't have a problem with people just trying to get rich off activism, then give your money to James Aspey, right? I want to support people who I think are doing smart things with the money. So I'm trying to work toward that. Speaking of activists, how do you feel about logical consistency or Lucy Munson? I actually don't follow that many kind of smaller street outreachers anymore. When I first went vegan, man, all I did was watch street outreach videos just all the time. So I watched all the small ones and everything. But as I started doing it more and I kind of, you know, I don't want to say I burn out on it, but I definitely don't watch it as much anymore. Pretty much the only street outreach videos I watch now are Justin's of Debug Your Brain because he only puts out like one a year anyway, so that's pretty easy. And Earthling Ed for sure because he's just a master. Sometimes I watch Joey's videos, but yeah, I really don't watch that many smaller people. That said, if they're out there doing their thing, I 100% support that. I think that's great. Yeah, I'm happy that more people are doing activism for sure. All right. Well, now let's get into the Reddit roundup. See what's been going on this week. All right. Long Island Vegan Bakery exposed for selling repackaged Dunkin' Donuts. We talked about that last week. Yeah, that's absolutely insane. She was just lying to people about it being not only vegan but gluten free, and people were saying to her face like, "Oh, I have celiac disease. I'm so glad you have these because I'm so allergic to gluten." And she's like, "Oh, well, here's your donut, and it's got gluten in there." That's absolutely bonkers. 9 dead, 78 others hospitalized after eating sea turtle meat. Oh shit, man! I hate to be like that vegan. That's like they deserved it, but sometimes I feel that way. You mess with the turtle, you get the shell. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. People would be so much better off by not eating animals. Is eating sea turtle common? People are just gonna eat whatever. I thought turtles were, like, endangered or something. Like, shouldn't we not be eating the turtles? I mean, obviously, we shouldn't be eating any animals, but that is strange. Sea turtle meat is considered a delicacy by Zanzibar's people, even though it periodically results in deaths. Wow, so this is a common thing. Man, can you imagine risking your life to eat a sea turtle corpse? That's crazy to me. That is absolutely crazy. So fucked up because those kids didn't deserve to die from kids died? Damn. Adults don't either, but you know what you were eating. Kids don't always grasp the concept nor have the ability to order food for themselves. Yeah, that sucks that kids died. Um, wow. Well, good for that. All right. I like those 2. I feel Lucy is struggling, something finding the right wording, just a language barrier. Is she not American? She is she French? I don't know. But yeah, language barriers can be tough. I know that Faraz has talked about like trying to get better at English, and he's gotten a lot better, but yeah, finding words can be difficult. I think David Ram's style is very convincing for a lot of people. Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's got a huge following, so I would hope that it's convincing. Our vegan was full of battle over the turtle post. What were people on our vegan can be really annoying, man. They're just like they're barely even vegan, right? Lots of people don't care if a species is endangered or not when it comes to their own gustatory indulgence. That's true, but I feel like people care more about endangered species than like species that aren't endangered. People are really weird about extinction. Like they're like, we can't stop eating the cows because the cows will go extinct. It's like you realize that by eating cows, you're making hundreds of other species extinct. But you know, Vegan Circle Jerk is the real vegan subreddit. That is true. Am I subbed to Vegan Circle Jerk on here? I better be. Yes, I am. Okay, so one of those posts should come up at some point soon, so we can look forward to Vegan Circle Jerk. Okay, this is ridiculous. 70% of men would rather die early than give up meat. Yeah, that's really sad. I wonder if the same's true for women. I think men just have like this weird it's probably all the brainwashing and socialization, but yeah, men are just so fragile when it comes to eating meat. They like think it's so important. I had this I interviewed this kid in Texas, and he was like pretending to be an Andrew Tate bro. Like he was like, "Oh, I can't do anything Andrew Tate says is bad." I'm not sure if I'm going to post the interview because he was like definitely joking like the whole time. But one of the things he said is like, "Oh, if you don't eat meat, you're going to be a little beta bro." And I just made the point that I'm sure a lot of you have heard before that there's nothing manly about paying someone to stab baby animals for you. The manly thing is to protect others. But really, we should get rid of that whole like dichotomy that men have to be manly in the first place. It's all kind of stupid if you ask me. I don't talk about veganism because I want people to know I'm vegan. I talk about veganism because I want people to stop murdering animals. Yeah, people are always like, "Oh, you're vegan? You have to tell everyone." It's really annoying. And I usually don't even tell people the first time I meet them cuz I know how much people hate vegans and it like immediately makes them not like you as much. So I try to have them like me first and then I'll bring up that I'm vegan. But yeah, when I'm talking about it, it's because of animals. And that's another issue I have with the word vegan that I think I'm going to be talking a bit more about in the future. That when people hear vegan, they don't think about animals at all. I've asked hundreds of people what they think when they hear the word vegan. No one has ever said animals, ever. They always say diet or healthy or that vegan teacher or something that just has nothing to do with animals. So, I support a shift from saying vegan to saying pro animal. Remind me, did you ever have a discussion with Ask Yourself or one of his lunatic minions regarding your fair criticisms of Name the Trait? Yes, not Ask Yourself. I He didn't reach out to me at all, and I was grateful for that, definitely. But yeah, I talked to Dr. Avi. We met actually in person. We had dinner with a few other people. He brought some of his criticisms to me. I didn't really I thought we were just hanging out. Apparently, in his mind, it was like a debate, and that's the end of that. I don't really want to engage with that community anymore. Honestly, I felt like they were pretty mean, and I just don't want to deal with it. We can debate, name the trait, but there's not any actual evidence. And I guess that was kind of the point they were making is that I don't have evidence that name the trait doesn't work. The evidence is my personal experience and overhearing other conversations and just seeing it being ineffective. But obviously they disagree, but you know, what can we do? So yeah, I would like to be done with the name the trait thing. I tested it out so many times after I made that video too. I was like, am I missing something? Like, does name the trait actually work? And when I met, because they always say, oh, there's like a specific type of person that's really into philosophy, and that's who Name the Trait works on. So then I'd meet this specific type of person they were talking about that was hyperlogical and into philosophy, and I would try Name the Trait, and it still wouldn't work. So then I thought maybe Name the Trait is just stupid, like I said initially. What if we start calling ourselves animal rights activists? But then people are thinking about activists, not the animals. Maybe. I just want to really center the animals. That's the goal. Do you think people may get confused if you were to say pro animal because so many people claim to be pro animal while eating them? Maybe, but so pro animal future actually like we a lot of the research this is like weird to even say. I know people are going to hate this. But a lot of our research shows that people are much more open to vegan messaging if it comes from a meat eater. They trust them more, they listen more, they're a lot more open to trying plant-based foods if someone says, "Oh, I eat meat, but this is really good." So that's why whenever I write reviews on Google for vegan food, I say, "I'm not even vegetarian, but the vegan steak was amazing." Because it's true, I'm not vegetarian. I'm vegan, but they don't know that. They just assume I'm a meat eater because I say I'm not vegetarian. So, you know, we're going to have meat eaters in the pro animal movement because we're trying to win an election. To win an election, you need at least 50% of people to vote yes. There are not enough vegans to win elections right now. Maybe one day there will be. So we need to win over meat eaters, and that involves working with meat eaters and having them identify as pro animal even when they're murdering animals. I know it sounds weird, sounds counterintuitive, but if someone starts identifying as pro animal, then they're more likely to think of themselves as pro animal and they're less likely to eat animals because maybe they'll realize, like, hey, ordering a dead chicken isn't very pro animal of me. I just spent 3 hours volunteering for pro animals. So ideally, you can kind of get in there first with the pro animal thing, and that can become vegan later. Um, but yeah, I don't know. We're playing around with it. I think name the trait doesn't work precisely from a philosophical perspective. Member of Homo sapiens is a trait. Yeah, yeah, that's true. So that shifts to which traits are morally relevant. Yeah, and I mean, it feels like every discussion I have with people just ends with species, and they're like, "Oh, well, we're human, they're animal," and I can explain that that's just an in group out group discrimination thing, but it just seems like it doesn't really work. What in the situations you've been in seems to be the best form of activism? This is a great question because I've been doing activism for like 3 years. I've done a lot of different types of activism. When I first started, I was just doing street outreach because I was alone in New Orleans. It's pretty much the only thing that I could do. I'd gone vegan partially because of Earthling Ed. So I was like, street outreach is the way. And then I started to learn more and I realized that we don't have time to turn everyone vegan. That's not enough time. There's too many people being born. We don't know if these people are going vegan. It doesn't seem to be the best strategy at all. So then I thought, well, maybe I'll do disruptions. And I did a disruption. I don't think that really helped much. And then I started doing fur protests. I think fur protests are great. I think that's a really effective form of activism that most people in most cities can do. So if you're looking at what to do, I would say definitely fur protests are great, especially because if we can't bring down the fur industry, we have no chance at bringing down animal agriculture. So things like that are great. I also really like open rescue. I like just taking animals out of farms and slaughterhouses. That's obviously a legal risk, right? Not everyone wants to do that. It's a real bummer that this open rescue case that was going to be happening this week, the charges were dropped. I would actually be in Wisconsin right now if the charges weren't dropped. I was going to go and hang out with everyone and get a bunch of footage about the trial. And we were going to argue that animals are not objects, that they are individuals. And I think that we would have won because it was dogs, but they dropped the charges, unfortunately. So, yeah, I think open rescue is a really great form of activism. Anytime I'm around people from Direct Action Everywhere, I think like, "Oh, man, they're like the serious people, right? Like these are the people that are gonna win animal liberation." But right now, I think the best form of activism is what Pro Animal Future's doing, and that's part of why I'm working with them because we are building community and changing laws. Ballot initiatives are such a great strategy because you can just make up a law, get it on the ballot, and then people can vote on it directly. So I think ballot initiatives are really good because if we try to go the political route and deal with the lobbyists and the politicians, it's just too hard because the meat industry has so much money in politics, whereas ballot initiatives kind of circumvent that. That being said, there's a reason that people don't use them as much. They're really hard to do. You have to get a lot of signatures. It's a lot of work. And right now, the election is in November, and we have to do whatever we can to win this election in November. So that's what I'm putting pretty much all my focus on for the next whatever 9 months that is. So I think that that's a really good activism. In terms of street outreach, I think that Elwood's activism is great. Elwood's is not name the trait simplified because Elwood's it's asking people to name the differences between dogs and pigs and cows and chickens, not pigs and cows and chickens and humans, right? The gap in most people's minds between animals and humans is so large, stupidly large, inaccurately large, but it is. But since there's not that gap between dogs and pigs, I think that's why Elwoods is so effective. So when I am doing street outreach, I think that Elwoods is the most effective that I've done. And yeah, just the conversations I've had after people see the dog meat are they're a lot more open. They're already feeling empathetic for the animals. So if you are going to do street outreach, Elwoods is a great tactic to use. Equalize the traits and test them. If the trait is being human, would they do the same to Neanderthals since they aren't human? Yeah, every time I try that, they just say, yeah, I would kill the Neanderthals because they don't care. They don't care about logical consistency. Um, yeah, I did a fur protest in DC, and I've got to say it was by far the most well received by the public out of any animal rights activism I've done. Yeah, people are pretty anti fur. Most people are pretty anti fur because it's something that only rich people use. And fur animals are really cute. They're so freaking cute. And people care about that. It's also really unnecessary. No one needs fur. And I know no one needs animal products, but people still strongly believe that they do need it. So, yeah, that's great that you were in DC. I bet you were with some of my friends, Mike, Katie. I have a lot of good friends in DC. They have a great community. If you live in DC, you should definitely get involved. What's up, 40-year-old vegan? How you doing? Do you think working in a grocery store or delivering carnist food is ethical as a vegan? Yeah, I think that's good. Good to talk about. So I was working in a half vegan restaurant for about a year and a half, like until August or so. And I had to serve people dead animals. And I didn't love it. But the good thing was that the restaurant was half vegan, right? So if someone asked for a recommendation, I can say, try the vegan. So ideally that helped a little bit. I think working in a grocery store is definitely vegan. I mean, first of all, it's as far as practicable and possible. Like, we don't want people to have to change their entire life to go vegan. If we're like, oh, you should go vegan, change your diet, stop buying these products, and also start a new career, like, that's just way too much to put on people, I think. So, working in a grocery store, totally fine. Delivering carnist food, I think, might be a little bit different. So I used to work at Jimmy John's, and the way the delivery system worked was that basically, like, the faster you are as a driver, then the more sandwiches get delivered, right? So you're kind of like increasing the supply and demand. And I mean, there may be limits to that. Like, are people ordering more sandwiches? No, I think so, because like the faster you deliver their sandwich, the more likely they are to order again. I was very focused on being very fast because I'm really competitive, and that's actually how you get paid too. Like, you get more money if you're fast. So I was riding a scooter. Most of my coworkers were either on a bike or in a car, and I could beat all of them because I could go on the bike paths and get up to the same speed as a car, without having to sit in traffic. So I think because I delivered sandwiches faster, that I did increase the demand for dead animals. So if you want to be a bad food delivery driver, that could be more ethical. Like, if you take forever to deliver sandwiches, then maybe people are going to be less likely to order delivery again. But then you'd make less money. So, I don't think anyone should quit their job over veganism necessarily, although, I definitely have. I think it's a bit too much to put onto people. But yeah, you could still say you're vegan. I think you could like be cooking dead animals and still say you're vegan. Like, if you have to for work, it just seems different to me. And yeah, to me it depends about increasing the demand and increasing the social acceptance. Like, if you weren't working in the grocery store, someone else would be working in the grocery store doing the exact same thing. It's not the same as like being at a party and eating some pizza, and then people see that you're eating pizza and then they think that torturing animals is okay. So I think it's a little bit different. People are anti-fur, but they have no problem with leather. Yeah, that's true. I mean, leather, yeah, we haven't even like started campaigning against leather, basically. It's because people see it as a byproduct, even though it's a co-product. And, most people have leather stuff. Most people wear leather. Whereas with fur, most people don't wear fur. And those fur animals also are not used for food, whereas the cows are. So I think in people's minds, they're like, the more we use of the animal, the more ethical it is. We all know that doesn't make a difference to the animal, but that's how people think about it. There's so many times I have conversations with people and they're like, "Oh, well, the Native Americans use the whole animal," as if that justifies killing the animal. And the reality is, in animal agriculture, we do use the whole animal. The bones are melted down for gelatin and all this stuff, and the leather is used. But yeah, I think that's why there's the difference with leather and fur. What was the reception like for the outreach? If you're talking about the Elwoods outreach, it was great. People are super receptive to it, definitely. Oh, you're talking to someone else, never mind. I'm lucky to work for a 100% plant-based company. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's the dream, right? Like everyone wants to work for like a vegan company. And it's, if we can, then that's great. Stores in my area are struggling to find butchers. That's interesting. Do you think that's because people like don't want to be butchers, or is it just like a labor shortage in general? Leather is also bad for the people who tan the leather and also the wear of the leather. Yeah, leather sucks. I didn't know it was bad for people who wore it. If you would elaborate on that, that would be cool. But yeah, what is it? It's like chromium or something they put in leather. It's bad for the environment. People are acting like vegan leather is like the worst thing ever, and it's just plastic polluting our airways. But the cow leather is much worse for the environment than vegan leather. A lot of people don't even know what leather is, whereas fur is pretty obvious. I think most people know what leather is. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've always known what leather was. Chemicals can leach into your skin from the leather? Really? Oh, that's gross, dude. That's not surprising, though. I mean, just the amount of chemicals that are in there, it would be surprising if it didn't leach into your skin. I wonder if that would change because some vegans are pro secondhand leather. Like, they don't see a problem with buying leather secondhand and wearing it. I wonder if it would change their opinion if they knew that there were chemicals in there. The chemicals. No one wants chemicals, even though chemicals are pretty much everywhere. Did I close Reddit? I did. I'm going to open it back up. Foods there's not quite replacements for yet. Yeah, I mean there's some foods. I feel like I'm pretty happy with all the vegan substitutes for everything. Like there's nothing I really miss that much. Um but I'm sure there are some things. The day a non-dairy cottage cheese exists. I used to when I was a kid, I hated cottage cheese. I thought it was the most disgusting thing in the world. My dad was always eating it, and I was like, "That's so gross." And then I started eating it when I was adult, and I actually liked it. Like it was pretty good with like strawberries or like pineapple. And when I went vegan, I was a little bummed that there wasn't cottage cheese. But now the thought of it just kind of sounds weird again. I also like a lot of the vegan cheese substitutes. I don't think are that good. Luckily, I never really cared that much about cheese. I didn't buy it because it's always been kind of expensive. I prefer cashew queso, but most of the store-bought vegan cheese I've tried is not very good. I feel like this is a good opportunity to remember that vegans are not the target audience for alternative foods. Yeah, that's true. The biggest frustration I have isn't a lack of alternatives, but their nutritional quality. I want to get my nutrients from the alternatives, whereas flexitarians can more easily make up for protein at other meals. I feel like most vegan substitutes do have a lot of protein. Like they're pretty good about that, but they also have like more fat and carbs than animal products or anything. Uh, but yeah, the vegan cheese substitutes have zero protein. They're like just fat. So that's another reason that I don't really eat them much. Labor shortage is a factor with the butchers, but they have no problem getting people in other department. I mean, who wants to decapitate animals? Yeah, I mean, some butchers like it. I met a butcher, and he was so offended by the thought of veganism. I was like, "Oh, what do you think? Do you like animals?" He's like, "Oh, well, I'm a butcher." Then he walked away in a huff. So yeah, I mean, some people like chopping up animals, which is weird. Did you read recently they engineered gene edited pigs that are virus resistant? I did not read that. That's weird. I mean, that's probably good in terms of like we don't want more pandemics, right? But yeah, obviously the better solution would be to stop breeding them, but people aren't going to do that. Not yet at least. Don't anti-fur campaigns and single issue campaigning in general present the idea that some animals matter more than others? I mean, that is an argument against that kind of stuff, but I guess the way I see it is like we're not saying that fur is bad and eating animals is okay, right? We're just saying fur is bad and we shouldn't be doing this to fur animals. And there are 100 million animals tortured, and skinned alive, and anally electrocuted for fur pretty like every year. 85% of them live on factory farms. It's terrible. So the fact that the public support is on our side to end this industry, I think is just something we should take advantage of. So yes, maybe these ideas do play into a speciesist mindset, but since it appears that we're not going to convince everyone to not be speciesist anytime in the near future, may as well work within speciesism where we can, like with fur, and at least help out those animals that fall into the species that people care about. This is why, like, the dog meat trade in South Korea, like, would you say that we shouldn't focus on ending the dog meat trade because it creates the idea that eating other animals is okay? I would say that we should just focus on how those dogs are feeling, and this is hurting them, and we should try to stop that as much as we can. And if the public support is there, we can channel that into our activism. But yeah, it definitely does present the idea that some animals matter more than others. But that's like the idea that's already in society, right? We're not like putting that idea in their head. Um, every meat alternative needs to surpass the soy curls with spices standard. Man, soy curls are so good. I love soy curls. What do you think about Salish Rao campaigning for a widespread vegan transition in 2026? It seems overly ambitious to me. I don't know who that is. Should I know who that is? I mean, obviously that's overly ambitious. It's 2024, but I feel like most vegans are campaigning for a widespread vegan transition. It's not like we're saying that we shouldn't have that, right? Runny vegan eggs. The Burger Dude has like a runny vegan egg recipe. I don't really care about runny eggs, so I haven't tried it, but everything I've tried from him is very good. Vegan salmon. The Burger Dude also has a great vegan salmon recipe. I made it a couple weeks ago. It was so good. I made it 2 days in a row. The tofu fillet, looking for the right texture. Yeah, it's not quite as flaky as salmon, but I preferred it. I thought it was great. I just want vegan hot Cheetos or hot fries. Man, it sucks that hot fries aren't vegan, right? Like, that freaking milk powder. I love hot fries. They're so good. And yeah, Cheetos. Cheetos are great. I mean, we have those hippies that are like, all right, but they don't scratch that same itch. I find Takis to be really good though for that. Brie cheese. Yeah, I mean, there's still a ways to go, but I feel so spoiled as a vegan when I think about people who were vegan like 10, 15 years ago. Like, we've got all this shit now that's like so good. He works with climate healers and pen to paper saying animal ag is the main cause of climate change. Okay. I should look into him. Oh, he was in the Oxford Union debate. Okay. Yeah, I did see that. I did see that. That was good. Um, if eating animals for pleasure isn't immoral, then cooking a dog for pleasure is also equally not immoral. Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's on Debate a Vegan. So I don't know who they're trying to debate there. Probably most vegans would agree with that. I hate how biased people and even vegans are toward cats. Cats are an invasive species, horrible for the environment. Any other invasive species, people are completely fine with sterilizing and even killing them, but then cats are just worshipped. Vegans are not fine with killing other invasive species, though. Sterilizing, sure, but people sterilize cats as well. I woke up today and it was flooding because it always floods here. And I was worried my car was going to flood, but it wasn't. I opened the door and there was the cutest little kitty on my porch. She was so cute. She was tiny. And I opened the door and then she like wanted to come in and I wanted to let her in, but I have a dog and he would freak out if a cat was brought in. And then he woke up and got out of bed and started barking at her. So yeah, I have a porch cat now, but what am I gonna do? I'm allergic to cats, so don't have a dog in that fight. Oh, I saw this. This pissed me off. We're at the real vegan subreddit, guys. Vegan Circle Jerk. these people are not fucking real. I'm a vegan mom and want my kids to love healthy food, and they do, but I also want to create a home where no food is bad. So of course I get pizza and cake for the kiddo's birthday party. That's so stupid because like then you're saying to them that because it's a special occasion, they can cheat on their morals. Like is that really the kind of values that you want to give someone? Also, it's not about the food being bad, it's about not harming animals. So if food involves the rape, the exploitation, and the murder of animals, then that is bad. Definitely. And there's so many vegan cake. There's vegan pizza and vegan cake. So why don't you just get that? That's how our family works too. There's no such thing as perfection. I mean, to be fair though, like I think it would be hard to raise kids vegan. I know people do it. But yeah, I would worry about the people feeling like they're gonna miss out, the kids feeling like they're gonna miss out and all the social pressure. Like kids just want to fit in. And yeah, power to people who've been able to raise their kids vegan. But I see a lot of posts on the subreddit about parents trying to raise their kids vegan and then the kid decides they want to eat animals. And yeah, that sounds really tough to me. How do you feel about the Liberation Pledge? So, for anyone who doesn't know, the Liberation Pledge is where you refuse to sit at a table with anyone who's eating animals. And I guess you like tell them why and you put a fork around. I think it was like a DXE thing. They started it like a while ago. And what they found is that it wasn't having the effect they wanted. The result of it was that a lot of people alienated themselves from their families. And like, since mental health is so important and since relationships are an integral part of mental health, it was having kind of a negative effect on people. Pax Fauna actually wrote a blog post about this. So I was reading it when I was preparing for my interview, and they talked about it a little in a bit more detail. I can see if I can find it. But I think people have pretty much abandoned the Liberation Pledge. Um, Rethinking the Liberation Pledge. I'll put this in the chat. So yeah, you can read that if you want. Glad I didn't follow it on my international flight a couple days ago. Yeah, that'd be pretty hard to do. For me personally, I really dislike being around people eating animals, but you can't always avoid it. You know, like if you're at a party, someone's eating a dead animal, there's not really anywhere for you to go. If I'm at a bar, someone orders dead animals, and there's like another table I can sit at that also has people, like I wouldn't just have to go sit at a table alone, then I'll do that. My family's pretty good. My sister's not good, but my parents are good about not eating dead animals around me, which I really appreciate. But yeah, I mean, you know, we all live in the non-vegan world and it sucks sometimes, and I do prefer to minimize my time around dead animals. So if I go out to eat, I like to bring people to vegan places just so there's no chance. Or if they have a really good vegan menu and you can say beforehand, like, hey, just so you know, like being around meat gives me flashbacks to slaughterhouses, or whatever's true for you, like whatever bothers it. I think setting boundaries is good, but maybe the whole Liberation Pledge can alienate people and take it a little bit too far. I do the Liberation Pledge for Veganuary. How does it work out for you, nerds like us? Do you like it? You still honor the Liberation Pledge? Has it caused any issues with you? If not, then that is great. Yeah, I mean, basically what I know about it is this article I sent, so it may not be entirely accurate. Gary Yourofsky had a bit about asking people to eat vegan for the one meal around him because they eat 1,000 meals a year without him. Yeah, I mean, that's true. Like, can they not just eat vegan for one meal? But in reality, if you like live with someone, then it's more than one meal. So you would be asking them to eat vegan like all the time around you. Maybe they don't want to do that, which sucks. But, you know, I can't relax around people eating animals. Yeah, it's really hard. It's hard for me to relax around people eating animals too. I just like, I don't know, man. It just upsets me because like they know what I do. They know how much I hate this, and they're just gonna do that around me anyway. It just feels disrespectful. And I don't like it either. But we can't control other people. We can only control ourselves, which is a bummer, because I wish I could force veganism on people like I'm accused of all the time, but I can't. Hi, vegans. I don't remember subbing to this, but that's fun. Do not buy these. Crave plant-based jerky. Some vegan jerky is great. A lot of vegan jerky sucks. I haven't tried this kind. Beyond Jerky is terrible. Louisville vegan jerky, so good. I had this mushroom jerky at the airport the other day. It was awesome. I think the mushroom jerky is generally the best. Our money, do they know we were talking about that on our stream? Meat cravings. I've recently turned vegan, but sometimes crave meat. All of a sudden, how does one contain these cravings? I mean, if you recently turned vegan, it's not really all of a sudden, right? Like, it may be normal to have cravings. I personally didn't crave any animal products because I went vegan and I watched Dominion, and I think that that's great because that kills cravings that you do have. Sometimes I'll crave animal food now, but only if I'm really hungry. And then I know I just need to eat. It's not that I want that specific food, it's that I am hungry and then I'll eat something and then I don't want it anymore. But yeah, just remember that we don't have to let our cravings be reality. Is the main sub waking up? Nope. Reddit is putting all these random posts to me. I guess it's because I'm not subbed to like diverse enough content because I just made this one, uh, this account a little bit ago. Um, Michael Greger, this is what a delusional echo chamber looks like. It's ironic that he wrote a book called How Not to Age, but he's looked like a grandpa since he was 35. How old is Dr. Greger? Um, I've only known about him since he's been old. Have you been in a slaughterhouse before? Yes, I have been in slaughterhouses before. They are terrible. But I think if you have the opportunity to go to them, it's a good thing to do because then you really feel even more strongly for the animals because when you see like the fear in their eyes and just how terrible it is and you hear the screams, I find it motivates me more. Like I don't know, I've always been pretty motivated to do animal rights activism. I think because I've seen so much slaughter footage and been to slaughterhouses and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's definitely valuable for sure. Are you a fan of jackfruit? It creeps me out because it tastes too real. I like jackfruit a lot, actually. I don't eat it that much, but when I do eat it, I like it. Trader Joe's has some like barbecue jackfruit that I get sometimes. Um, but yeah, I get to talk about veganism more. Everyone at work will ask why I stopped eating with them. Oh man, yeah, coworkers, man. When I first went vegan, I was working at this office job. There were actually two vegans there. They were part of that Supreme Master cult. Three other vegans there. They were like a family. They were the Supreme Master cult, and so it was nice to have that initial support when I went vegan. I knew they were vegan, and most of the office was pretty cool with it because they'd already laid the groundwork. But I was very vocal when I first went vegan. I think some of my coworkers were, they didn't want to hear about it all the time. And I was talking about it all the time. And eventually I just got sick of like being around people eating dead animals. There was one day, it was the day I decided to quit. I was just like, it was a shitty job. I mean, I was basically like selling embroidered shirts, like kind of designing the embroidery and dealing with sales and dealing with customers. And it was a bad job overall. It was one of those jobs that is so soul sucking and you're only living for the weekend, but then on the weekend, you're just dreading the week. So if anyone's in that situation, I sympathize and I relate. But there was one day where like my manager messed this thing up, or she didn't do something that she could have easily done. She was the only one with the authority to do it. And because she didn't do it, we all had to do like 5 hours of completely unnecessary work instead of her like fixing this bug in the system. And then that day, my coworker was eating like pulled pork and it smelled so gross. She was eating and she was asking me about my dog. She's like, "Oh, well, like, is your dog vegan?" I was like, "Yeah, I mean, dogs can be on plant-based diets. He's not vegan." Like, I've tried explaining the ethical position to him before. he doesn't really understand it. Veganism is about ethics. And she's like, "Oh, well, that's messed up. I mean, shouldn't he have a choice?" And it just really pissed me off because, like, the animals she was eating obviously don't deserve a choice, but, like, my dog should have a choice of what he eats. And she was basically, I think she said it was like animal abuse or something. I was like, well, if you think that's abuse, then you're really going to hate what happens in the pork industry or something like that. And yeah, I just didn't want to fucking deal with my carnist coworkers anymore. I was too angry at the time. I think now I'm a lot less angry than I was, but I'm so happy that I had saved up enough money so that I could quit my job. It was great. But yeah, it was a rough day for sure. You should watch Supreme Masters of Vegan Christmas Carol Adventure. Interesting. Oh, it's insane. All right, maybe I'll check it out. I've watched some of Supreme Masters YouTube channel, and yeah, the videos are pretty weird. There was so Allied Scholars for Animal Protection. We had a student who was he was leading one of the chapters at one of the universities. I won't say which, but he was like 4 months away from graduating. He was really involved with ASAP and everything. And then he dropped out of college and he started, I guess, like traveling with the Supreme Master Cult, just like kind of out of nowhere. So we were all like, "Oh my god, like what happened?" It's great that they have an animal rights message though, and it is an animal rights message. It's not just like the be vegan because you're healthy. It really does appear to be about the animals, which is great because there are other cults where the only goal is personal purity and they don't really care about animals. It's just about like you not. I don't really know what it's about actually. Um, when does anyone ever give dogs a choice? Yeah, I mean, our dogs don't choose what food they eat ever, really. Like, they can't go to the store with us. Like, we know kind of what they like, and we can try different foods and see what they like more. But at the end of the day, like, they're not going to choose. My dog, he loves his diet. I think he always eats his food and he loves the food that I eat. I do feed him most of my food. He begs like crazy for tofu and soy curls, and like he eats beans and green beans. So, yeah, dogs can definitely thrive on a plant-based diet, but they cannot be vegan because vegan is about ethics, and I don't think dogs have the capacity to understand ethics yet. Maybe one day in the future. UT Austin. What about UT Austin? I love UT Austin. I went about a year ago. It was great. I'd love to go back. We were just in Texas. We went to 3 universities in Texas. Unfortunately, we didn't go to UT Austin, which was a bummer because there's some really cool students there. And there's that guy that like freaked out over the dog meat that was at UT Austin. I would love to meet him. Maybe one day. Maybe one day. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer I'm not gonna be touring with ASAP anymore, because I got a different job. I do love touring with ASAP. I think it's a really great organization. That's another organization I would say definitely donate to, because they use their money wisely as well. Stop showing me stuff that's not vegan. It's really something that I can have all this and no animals had to suffer for it. Man, vegan nuggets are great. Yeah, it is great. There's nothing like having a late night, air frying some nuggets with some wine. Looking good. Looking good. Foods that won't scare omnis. I had a great experience today at a family get together. There were 12 omnivores and 3 vegans, vegetarians, but I was in charge of the meal, so I made a ton of pinto and black bean chili and it went over very well. Um In the past, these same folks have wrinkled their nose at any meat substitute or common vegan foods they've never heard of, like tempeh, soy curls, nooch. Who the hell would wrinkle their nose at soy curls? That is offensive. Everyone I've given to soy curls to has absolutely loved them because they're so freaking good. So, what other meals can I make in the future that are vegan but don't use any meat substitutes or tofu things average omnis will be scared of? With pasta, they'll expect meat and cheese. I think that most omnis actually really love tofu. Like everyone, most people, maybe not everyone, but most people love tofu. So I think tofu is safe. That's something I feed people a lot. But in general, ethnic foods, you say maybe no ethnic foods, but I think ethnic foods are the best to give people. And I eat so many more ethnic foods now that I'm vegan than I used to. Mushroom risotto. Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, people love mushrooms generally. I made like this mushroom Wellington over Christmas. My brother-in-law is, like, not very open to vegan foods. He has a lot of texture issues. He just, like, hates all vegetables, but he loved the mushroom Wellington, so I consider that a win. It's like cooking for, like, a picky kid. Roasted veggies, especially potatoes, stuffed bell peppers. Potatoes are great, like, whenever, someone tells me like, "Oh, I hate vegan food." I'm like, "Well, do you like french fries? Do you like potatoes?" And then that gets them to think like, "Yeah, like obviously they like potatoes cuz they're so good." More potatoes. I've been able to get my boyfriend to eat tofu as long as it's crumbled up. Yeah, actually tofu scramble is one of my favorite meals now. Um, Highly recommend it. Rainbow Plant Life's tofu scramble specifically is like the best recipe. A lot of her recipes are really good. Subjective morality is cringe. Yeah, I mean, I used to be one of those people that was like morality is subjective. It really allows you to like get out of a lot of discussions that you don't want to have. But now when people say that to me, I think the best response to morality is subjective is to say, I agree that morality is subjective to some degree, but I think that stops when there's a victim involved. Like maybe in philosophy, morality can be subjective, but when it comes to harming someone else, do we agree that morality depends on if it hurts someone? And people usually say yes to that. They're like, oh, yeah, you're right. Like, if there's a victim, then morality is not subjective. That was one that it actually took me a while to figure out a good argument against. So, you are welcome. How would you recommend to behave around non vegan friends? On the one hand, I'd like them to know my opinion and be kind of forced to think about it more often. But what if I'm being preachy? This is like such a nightmare. When I first went vegan, I think I was way too preachy and I stopped getting invited to stuff like a lot. Like, yeah, and it kind of sucked, and it harmed some of my relationships with those friends. And, you could say maybe those friends weren't the best because like if they don't have a strong moral foundation, if they don't respect someone who's like doing important things in the world, then they're probably not the best friends for you. And I do agree with that, but at the same time it's really nice to have friends that you can just hang out with whenever you want, right? So I think it's a matter of maybe testing it. Like if you say something and then people get really weird, maybe don't say something the next few times you hang out with them. But if you never say anything, then you're going to start to resent them. So that could be bad too. So I think when it comes to friendships, one of the best things you can do is improve your social skills and become respected and a leader in the friend group. Because when people respect you, they're going to be a lot more willing to kind of take the things you say seriously. So how do you get people to respect you, right? Like just like a quick rundown of that. When there's a decision that the group is trying to make, be one of the people who makes the decision, like become the leader. If no one can decide where to eat, say like, oh, let's go here and then go. Or like if conversation stalls, hop in with the new conversation. Talk louder than feels right. Talking loud is a good way to just like make sure people listen to you. Don't let people interrupt you. If people try to interrupt you, make sure you finish your sentence. And yeah, just have good body language. Like take up space, posture, back. I think one of the best things we can do is improve our social skills and become someone people respect. Also, if you have a Toastmasters around, the best thing I've done for my social skills lately is to join Toastmasters because not only do you get to work on your public speaking every week, but you get to meet people who care about self improvement and personal development. And just being around people who value that kind of stuff, you're going to become so much better at speaking and you learn how to use hand gestures, you learn vocal tonality and things like that. So yeah, really great. I would highly recommend joining Toastmasters. You could be John Stewart and your friends still won't go vegan. Yeah, I wonder if John Stewart's friends are vegan because he's vegan. So probably some of them are. I don't know. Who knows? He should probably talk about it more on his show. I don't think he's done an episode on veganism. I wish that he did. What do you think about dumpster divers who eat non-vegan food that would be wasted? Yeah, so I made a video a while back called "If I Had to Eat Animal Products, This Is What I Do." And the premise was like, all these people say we have to eat animals. Like, what if that was actually true? And dumpster diving was one of the things I put on that list. I think it's probably the best way to eat animal products ethically. I I have a hard time coming up with an ethical argument against it besides just the speciesism one. Like, if you found a dead human, would you eat the dead human? Probably not. So why are you eating a dead animal? But if that dead human was chopped up and cleaned and packaged and put in a dumpster, then maybe you would eat them. I don't know. But there's a decent environmental argument in favor of dumpster diving because food, when it breaks down, creates methane. Food waste is very bad for the environment, like a lot worse than some other things that we do. So by eating that, you're reducing food waste, which helps the environment. That being said, I wouldn't dumpster dive, but I don't think it's like morally terrible. I don't think people should do it around other people. Like, if you're a vegan and you dumpster dive with a non-vegan and you eat non-vegan food, then you're normalizing the idea of eating animals. So if you are going to dumpster dive, do it in secret. Don't tell anyone. Don't be loud about it. And yeah, think about the if you would eat humans and if you wouldn't, then you're probably coming from a speciesist perspective. All right. Well, it's been about an hour and a half. So I think I'm going to end. Does anyone have any last questions for me? If not, I'm going to get out of here. It's Sunday night, y'all. So I hope you have a good work week. And I'm not going to be here next week because I'm going to be in Tucson, Arizona. So if you have any recommendations for things to do in Tucson, let me know. I'm going to be there for family stuff. So I might be pretty busy with my family, but I'm looking forward to it. And then the week after that, I'm actually going to be in Denver. I'm really excited. I'm going to go meet all the pro animal people and get some content there and talk to Denver voters. So I will not be streaming for the next actually 3 weeks because I'm still going to be in Denver on the 6th too. So anyway, thanks for coming. This is going to be the last Sunday Scaries for probably about a month. So I appreciate you guys hanging out. I appreciate you listening to me talk about finances. And yeah, just for anyone who missed it earlier, I think that vegans should be transparent about their finances and that we should not be trying to get rich off of activism. And if you want to be rich, make your money elsewhere and you know, then spend it on donating to animal rights stuff. Don't try to make money from vegans. Unless you're using it for smart activism and campaigns, then I think it's okay. But yeah, that's just a brief summary. If you want to hear what else I think about it, then watch the beginning of the stream. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate all the questions, and I will see you later.